Big beautiful bill passed, going to President Trump's desk. It is there. It is done after months, it seems like, if not only weeks of tumultuous back and forth and back and forth. The big beautiful bill has finally passed. Libs are freaking out about it, but they woke up freaking out about, I don't know, President Trump using the restroom this morning. I don't know why I went there with that analogy. I didn't need to do that. I'm just trying to articulate the fact that libs freak out about everything, and whether or not that's justified, I guess will remain to be seen. I have a pretty optimistic look at this, but this is just happening today. So let's get into our guest today. Brandon Straka is the founder of the Walkaway Movement. Brandon, your kind of just initial thoughts on the the big beautiful bill, Freudian slip there, the big beautiful bill getting passed by the House and the Senate, then back to the House, now to President Trump's desk. What do you think about that before I kind of talk about the process part of it?
Oh, well, I guess I was going to kind of comment on the process part of it a little bit, but I'll say, I would say that, it's a bit of a mixed reaction. I would say that I think it's always good when the Republican side of the aisle can demonstrate to the American people that things are advancing and they're getting things moving forward, because the biggest complaint I think that most of us have is it's rarely with the policies of the Republican Party so much, or, the new Republican American First MAGA movement. It's usually the fact that we can't really get stuff done. And, the American people fight so hard and work so hard to get us to a point where we've got, the majority in Congress, we've got the majority in the Senate, we've got the White House, and then people are left sitting there going, yeah, guys, what are we doing? Like, is anything moving forward? So it's always nice, I think, to show the American people that, we are capable occasionally of getting things to President Trump's desk. On the other hand, I think we've got to, be cognizant of practicing what we preach from time to time, because we've been very critical of omnibus bills and these big bloated bills in Congress and stuff. And look, no one can market and package something better than President Trump. We know that, but I think let's be a little bit consistent here too, because I think we want to be advancing bills that are, digestible, manageable, and that we're not cramming too many things in one thing. But bottom line, I think it's always good when we're actually moving something forward. So I'll take the win.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you bring up that point, because procedurally, I have a huge problem with these big omnibus bills, but I don't blame President Trump or even conservatives in Congress for trying to make it happen this way. What I really blame is the voters. Like, if the voters would hold their elected officials accountable for things, they wouldn't be able to get this stuff through. I'm glad it's through. There's a lot of great stuff in that bill, and if you want to really a deep dive, go watch the Charlie Kirk show. He's got a much better breakdown than we're going to have here. But I did want to talk about this. I think this is really interesting, and I'd love your thoughts on this. The New York Times said that this exposed the deep divide amongst conservatives, which I don't know if that's a hit, right? Like, good that we can get together and vote on something, but at the same time, that's kind of the whole point of conservatism. You have disagreements, and you're allowed to have disagreements, and we sort it out together, and we eventually pass the big, beautiful bill and put it on President Trump's desk. The left doesn't have anything. It's lockstep all the time, and you can't deviate at all, and if you do, you're a bigot, racist, fascist, whatever. But conservatives have disagreements. What are your thoughts there on just the broad scopes of conservatives being able to talk things out, hash things out in a reasonable way, and eventually come to an agreement on something?
Well, to me, okay, look, you're talking to somebody who thinks it's really healthy for people to disagree and to articulate those disagreements. And I think a second ago, you might have even used the word civilly or something like that. Look, I don't even think we need to worry that much about being civil. Like, politics is messy. It's ugly, and look, it's not a bad thing for people to be really passionate about their positions and to feel very, very strongly. I mean, we're grown people, and look, no one survives in politics without a thick skin. Okay, so let's get rid of this idea that, we can't get too impassioned or inflamed, or we can't raise our voices, or we can't, I personally think and I've sat back, let me tell you, like, if we switch gears just for a second, we talked about, like, say, Israel, Palestine, and, what just happened with us striking Iran, right? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of divide within the conservative movement about what the right thing to do there was. It's an incredibly complicated issue. I took a step back and I listened to people on both sides of the argument who I respect immensely, who had very impassioned, very, felt very, very strongly about what they were saying on diametrically opposite sides. And I learned a lot by just watching those interactions take place. I don't think it's a bad thing for us to argue and disagree. And as
Yeah.
far as what the New York Times is pushing and their whole narrative on all this, it's an interesting thing. I mean, there have been several splits, like even if we were just to say the MAGA movement, but not just the Republican Party at large, but even within MAGA, there have been a number of different splits and arguments that have happened over the last 3 or 4 months. And it's an interesting take that the liberal media is giving recently, because if you'll remember, for years they said we were in a cult. They said that we were all just they said that we were all just a bunch of mindless drones who walk in lockstep and follow the party narrative and all this stuff. And now all they're reporting on is, oh, look at all these people with all their own opinions and they're arguing with each other. It's like, yeah, that's what we are. We're intelligent people who don't all agree. Most of us are pretty strong-willed people. That's why we've survived in politics for years, because you have to be to survive. And it's not a bad thing to disagree. And in fact, you can learn a lot. I just did recently by staying out of some of these arguments and just listening.
That's a great point. Yeah, are we in a cult or do we disagree on everything? You can't be both, because
Yeah.
it just doesn't pan out that way.